all of you taking the time on Sunday morning. I know that for most folks it's the day off, so come to listen to politicians on. That's what I want to thank everybody here at this wonderful company. I just had a terrific tour of the plant, and I was very impressed with what everybody here is doing. And I want to thank all who were involved in the tour and congratulate them on the great job that they're doing. I'm going to make just a few quick remarks about the economy. And then what I'm going to do is really open up the questions. I want this more to be a conversation as opposed to just giving a speech. You know, our economy has been struggling for some time now. And as I've traveled all across Ohio, I've seen the face of this economy. I saw a mother who told me she can't afford health care for a sick child. A father who was worried he wouldn't be able to send his children to college. And seniors who've seen their pensions disappear because the companies they gave their lives to went bankrupt. Even though the CEOs of those companies sometimes got a $1 million bonus for themselves. I don't have to tell you about this because folks around here have been directly impacted by the changes in our economy, whether it was the loss of steel jobs over the past few decades or the closing of the Ford plant that was here for so long. And folks in this area are still worried about whether they're going to lose their jobs and how they're going to make ends meet if that happens. Now, if we're honest with ourselves, we'll acknowledge that we can't stop globalization in its tracks, that some of these jobs are not going to be coming back. But what I refuse to accept is that we have to stand idly by while workers watch their jobs get shipped overseas. We need a president who's working as hard as you are to make sure that our families have opportunity in this country. And that's the kind of president that I intend to be. I proposed a job creation agenda that starts with making sure trade works for American workers. We can't keep passing unfair trade deals like NAFTA and put special interests over workers' interests. Now, the last couple of days we've been having a little bit of a debate about NAFTA. Senator Clinton's been going to great lengths on the campaign trail to distance herself from NAFTA. Yesterday she said NAFTA was negotiated by the first President Bush, not by her husband. But let's be clear, it was her husband who got NAFTA passed. In her own book, Senator Clinton called NAFTA one of Bill's successes and legislative victories. Yesterday, Senator Clinton also said, I'm wrong to point out that she once supported NAFTA, but the fact is, she was saying great things about NAFTA until she started running for president. A couple years after it passed, she said NAFTA was, and I quote, free and fair trade agreement, and that it was, quote, proving its worth. In 2004, she said, quote, I think on balance, NAFTA has been good for New York and America. 1 million jobs have been lost because of NAFTA, including 50,000 jobs here in Ohio. Yet 10 years after NAFTA passed, Senator Clinton said it was good for America. I want to be very clear. I don't think NAFTA has been good for America, and I never have. I didn't just start criticizing unfair trade deals like NAFTA because I started running for office. I'm doing it because I've seen what happens to a community when the factory closes down and jobs move overseas. Some of you may know I began my career as an organizer on the south side of Chicago, fighting joblessness and poverty in neighborhoods that had been devastated because the steel plants had closed there back in the early and mid-'80s. It's because of this long-standing commitment to working families that I will not sign any trade agreement as president that does not have protections for our environment and protections for American workers. I intend to pass the Patriot Employer Act that I've been fighting for ever since I ran for Senate so that we can end tax breaks for companies that ship jobs overseas and give those tax breaks to companies that create good jobs with good and decent wages right here in the United States of America. It's also time to let our unions do what they do best, which is organize workers. The majority of workers want a union, they should get a union. It's that simple. But we need to stand up to the business lobby that has been resisting it and go ahead and pass the Employee Free Choice Act. It's fighting for it in the Senate. That's why I'll make it law on the land when I'm president of the United States of America. We can also invest in American jobs by investing in America and rebuilding our roads and our bridges. I propose a national infrastructure reinvestment bank that will invest $60 billion over 10 years. This will multiply into almost $500 billion of additional infrastructure spending and generate nearly 2 million new jobs, many of them in the construction industry that's been hard hit by the housing crisis that we're facing. As I was on the tour, I was hearing that demand for wallboard has actually gone down 25%. And that means that there's a lot of pressure in the construction industry and the housing market. One way to boost that is to shift some of our spending to make sure that we're building infrastructure here in the United States. In addition, we've also got to do more to create the green jobs that are the jobs of the future. My energy plan will put $150 billion over 10 years into establishing a green energy sector that will create up to 5 million new jobs over the next 2 decades, including jobs right here in Ohio that pay well and can't be outsourced. We'll also provide funding to help manufacturers convert to green technology and help workers learn the skills they need for these jobs. We all know that this has to be done in a responsible way without adding to the already obscene debt that has grown by $4 trillion under George Bush. We cannot build our picture on a credit card issued by the Bank of China. And that is why I will pay for every single part of this job creation agenda by ending this war in Iraq that's costing us billions, by closing tax loopholes for corporations, putting a price on carbon pollution, and ending George Bush's tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans. But in the end, enacting this agenda won't just require investment. It will require a new spirit of cooperation and innovation and shared sacrifice. We'll have to remind ourselves that we rise and fall as one nation. In a country in which only a few prosper is wrong, does not follow our ideals and our democracy, and that those of us who benefited greatly from the benefits blessings of this country have a solemn obligation to open the doors of opportunity, not just for our children, but to all of America's children. That's the kind of vision I have for this country, and that's the kind of vision I hope to make real when I'm President of the United States of America. So, those are my opening remarks. What I want to do now is just open it up for questions. I think the press has been informed that we're going to have some questions from those who are actually in attendance. And after we're completed with those, I'll take a few questions from the press, because we don't have another place to set up a debate. All right? So be patient with me, but don't start